Kelly? Good morning, members of the Committee of Justice, members of Parliament, support staff, visitors in the public tribune, and those following by other forms of media. Welcome to this meeting of the Committee of Justice number 1 of today, Wednesday, October 4th, 2023. I'd like to give a special welcome to the Minister of Justice, Ms. Anna Richardson, and her support staff. We've established a quorum of 8 members. Please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. I've received notice of absence from the following committee members, members Duncan, Emmanuel, and Pantaflet. Members of Parliament, before going over to notifications, I do have 2 notifications as well. Firstly, I would like to, first of all, say that this meeting was indeed, it was called at the very last minute. The opportunity to have this topic, which we couldn't continue the meeting last time due to lack of quorum, but with the minister actually traveling this afternoon, she was able to coordinate with us to be able to come specifically at this slot, which was the opportunity we would have had to have this meeting rather than waiting until the following meeting week. So for that reason, I would like to thank the members for attending at such short notice. It is very much appreciated. Secondly, I would like to inform the members of Parliament on behalf of the Presidium that we did receive 2 urgent requests for public meetings, one related to GB and one related to the NHI. These meetings are going to be called the GB meeting on next week Wednesday and the meeting on the NHI next week Thursday. The members, these invitations have already gone out and the members will receive these convocations on Thursday. Do we have any notifications from members at this time? MP Rumo.
Good morning to you, Mr. Chairman. A pleasant good morning to our Honorable Minister and support staff, to my colleague MPs, those in the Tribune, and those listening via the media. I would like to thank the Minister for taking time out of her schedule this morning to come and bring the presentation back to Parliament. And I would also like to state for the record that last week I could not be present because I was off island due to a family emergency. And I may be leaving earlier today because of a previous scheduled, we are traveling for Parliament today as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Rameau. And if there are no other notifications, then we go over to the meeting where we have 2 agenda points today. Firstly is a presentation by the Minister of Justice regarding the draft national ordinances and decrees related to the legal position of police and the Justice Organization Function Book, and recognize calculations of the retroactive and future financial obligations to justice personnel. This is IS 908 of the 22-23 parliamentary year, dated June 30th, 2023. And the second agenda point is an update regarding the draft Criminals Procedure Code. It is good to note that this meeting was originally scheduled for Friday, September 29th, but could not commence due to lack of quorum. We go over to agenda point 1. On June 30th, 2023, Parliament received a letter from the Minister of Justice, Ms. Anna Richardson, with the request for an audience with the Justice Committee of Parliament to discuss the aforementioned agenda point. As mentioned earlier, this document is under IS 908-2223, dated June 30th, 2023, and can be found on the general teams of Parliament. Hence, this agenda point. I see that the Minister has a presentation prepared for the members of the Justice Committee. So I would like to give the Honorable Minister the floor at this time for opening remarks and her presentation. Minister, you have the floor.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of Parliament, to my support staff, the support staff of Parliament, those that are viewing and listening online, those that are here this morning in the Tribune. Special good morning to all senior citizens. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I hereby bring an update regarding the status of the work that has been completed in connection with the pursuit to have the official function book of the Ministry of Justice enacted, and by extension, the updated and new legal position of police with a new salary scale, and finally, the calculations of the retroactive and future financial obligation of the country to the justice personnel. With that, I would ask your attention to the screen as I deliver a presentation in accordance with Agenda Point 1, which is registered under IS 908-2022-2023 and dated June 30th, 2023. To begin, let us take a look at the current state of affairs regarding the legislative package. From the start of this intense and long overdue process, I have provided step-by-step updates about this administrative team's progress, and today, once again, I bring these details. The history. After 11 years without having a completed function book, the Ministry of Justice, the function book was worked on and completed by this administration. With my team, I ensured that the function book followed the proper legislative process as is stipulated by law, and as I said, it would be done, and so it was done in the same way, signed by national decree by former Governor, His Excellency Dr. Anders Eugene Holliday, and my person as Minister of Justice on December 21st, 2021. Simultaneously, this administration worked on finalizing a new and updated version of the police law and salary scales for Police St. Martin. These were all done in collaboration with the CCSU, meaning all unions, including the NRPB, who is not formally a member of the CCSU, but as minister, I made it possible with the Y2 union to give this particular police union a seat at the table and a voice to represent officers. After having signed the national decree to approve the function book, it was sent to the Ombudsman for review to ensure that there were no constitutional infringements. Having obtained the approval of the Ombudsman, it was then published in the National Gazette. The status of the Ministry of Justice function book is that its enactment by national decree is contingent on the upcoming budget amendment, of which we are all here today, and especially the personnel of justice. We are depending specifically on the approval of said budget amendment by the Parliament of St. Martin when my colleague Minister of Finance, the Honorable Artwell Arian, presents same in a few short weeks. As it relates to the status of the police law and the new salary scales, the Police of St. Martin is a department within the Ministry of Justice. The function book of this department forms part of the ministry's approved function book. Based on this, the legal position regulation or the Rex Positie and the new salary scales must be formalized together with the function book. Vital discussions were held with the Council of Ministers, the Council of Advice, the unions, which includes ABVO, WICSU, Y2, and NRPB as an observer under the CCSU platform about the draft legal position, regulation, and new salary scales. An attempt was made to have the package signed by His Excellency in December of 2022. However, in alignment with the kingdom law that governs the signing of such laws, just having an amount considered in the budget was not sufficient. The complete debt calculation was a must, and as such, the Ministry of Justice Financial Controllers Department took the bull by the horn and dedicated countless hours to researching the historical salary data with the assistance of ANTEC to retrieve historical payroll data information for over some 760 active and inactive employees of the Justice Ministry in order to calculate the retroactive payments and financial obligation going forward. This process was a very meticulous one and required accuracy and diligence. Simultaneously, in accordance with the social statute, two formal committees were established. The Placement Committee, whose role was to prepare and distribute letters to each staff, giving them notification as to where their current position aligns in the new function book, their scale and the salary attached to same. The second committee is the Appeals Committee. This committee's role is to review objections received from any staff who is not in agreement with the placement notice and can provide plausible data to confirm that their placement should be different. These committees remain in place until the entire placement and objection process is completed. To ensure sufficient account for the inactive personnel and possible changes resulted from possible objections of the offer letters, an estimated total further increased with an additional 15% factor. The projected estimates does take overtime into consideration, personal allowances and vacation allowances as part of the wage estimate of the individual employee. Additionally, estimating also the full cost to the employer and employee regarding contributions to both social and pension premiums. Total estimated wage cost to the employer, as you can see on the screen, is some 38.7 million. There's a 10% factor that is considered, totaling 3.8 million for those that are not accounted for, for the amounts that are not accounted for inactive employees. There's a 5% margin of error factor, totaling at 1.9 million. The total budget required sums to 44.5 million guilders. Total contribution to pension, or RPS, is estimated at 10.4 million. Total contribution to social premiums, 4.9 million guilders. Estimated wage tax, 8.7 million. Estimated wage tax, 21.4 million. The total estimated expenditure for the government of St. Martin from the period of 2010 to 2023 can be seen in the graph on the screen. The current estimated net wages does not take into account the already advanced payment made to justice workers, which estimates to a total of 3.2 million guilders. Once the total sum the government of St. Martin is obligated to compensate the personnel of justice, once that was identified, it was immediately realized that the initial covenant agreement that spoke to a 5-year repayment payment period was no longer feasible, as the debt is way too large to accommodate such a short pay period. As such, I requested a meeting with the CCSU after presenting to the Council of Ministers. In July 2023, a meeting with all unions commenced, and the details of the calculations was provided to all in attendance, and a new agreement was achieved where a different payment disbursement plan mapped out that would ultimately benefit the civil servants. The disbursement plan over a period of 10 years and also includes an alternative method of vacation days. There is also a special provision for retired persons of the ministry. Considering the annual disbursement plan, an estimated 4 to 6 million in retroactive payments is advised to be reserved for the annual disbursement over the period of 7 to 10 years, as you can see on the screen. The head of Financial Planning and Control, Ms. Saskia Thomas Solomon, who is also the sole person who spent countless hours gathering the historical payroll data and computing the debt, is currently undergoing a process with SORB to ensure the proper procedures were followed. As I have mentioned several times, and I will state here again, the calculations will be audited to ensure the ministry did this correctly. Mr. Chairman, I will hereby reiterate that it is this administration who has done the heavy lifting. The administration who has taken a decade plus undone for the justice workers. This is a can that has been kicked down the road for many years, and it is now completed. We now await the Minister of Finance to present to the Parliament the budget amendment. It is contingent. I can't stress how important it is that this budget is realized to be of essence, to be able to have the justice workers receive what is due to them. This process was long, it was tedious, it was done by the books, and now we are seeking to be able to have the requirements of His Excellency, but not just His Excellency, but the Kingdom Law met so that Excellency can sign the legislative package. As such, we will be present for that budget debate because many ask the question regarding the status of justice. Some even seek to get credit for this, but the hard work was done by this administration. I want to also mention that the governor has also received this presentation. He is well aware of all the work that has been done. And then we are just waiting for the budget amendment to be passed by Parliament. That is my update for today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Minister Anna Richardson, for the presentation. And normally the question does come, so I'll preempt it. Would you have any issues sharing this presentation with the members of Parliament if that hasn't been done already? Yeah, so it will be members of Parliament. The presentation will be shared with you eventually. I look to the members of the committee to see who would like the floor, and we have first MP Grisha Heilige-Martin.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to my fellow colleagues. Good morning to the Minister and the support staff. And good morning to those listening and viewing online. Just for clarification, Mr. Chairman, through you, I'd like to ask the Minister a few questions. First and foremost, the governor is right now, what is his role right now? What is he signing off on right now? What is needed by the governor for this to be executed right now? Since through you, Mr. Chairman, the Minister of Justice is also part of the COM. I would like to know what is the situation. Maybe she can enlighten us and give us an update. Why is the budget not with Parliament today for us to amend it? It had to come since the 2023 budget amendment was supposed to be with Parliament since June. What is the holdup? With regard to the placement committee, all that was sent out, how were the responses? Was everything completely sent out? Every section, every department received their placement letters? And how were the responses? Are they all positive? With regards to the appeals committee, how many responses were negative? How many responses are in appeal based on the placement? For the APS pensioners, the amount that is going to be disbursed, are they going to be getting it paid in full, or are they also going to be subjected to the 10, what is it? The installments. Let me see, anything else? For now, I would like to leave it at that based on the answers to the questions through you, Mr. Chairman. I'll see if I need to ask any more. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Heilige-Martin. Next, we have MP Westcott Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to you. Good morning to my colleagues. A good morning to all tuned into this meeting of Parliament, those in the Tribune, and everyone viewing and listening to this meeting. A very good morning to the Minister and her support staff here with us this morning. Mr. Chairman, through you, I want to thank the Minister for this presentation regarding to where things stand right now, with the end result or the end objective being to pay out the money owed to the justice workers. That's the ultimate goal of what has been done and what has been done here. Mr. Chairman, let me pick up with, or at the first item, which has been an ongoing discussion for many years, and that is the issue of the function book. The Minister, in her presentation, like done in the past, has confirmed that the function book has been approved by national decree. For the understanding of the public and those involved, I think it would be good if we use the national decree containing general measures. No, I see the Minister shaking her head, so it's not that national decree. Well, this would then ask, so then, if that is not a national decree containing general measures, this is just a regular national decree approving the function book. However, that national decree is saying that the enactment of that national decree will take place by national decree. So it is by, let me use the Dutch acronym as my colleague MP just mentioned. So we have the function book approved by LB, but the enactment is yet to come by LB, national decree. But this enactment, So the LB to enact the function book is tied to the budget. I'm understanding it to be, and if not, if the minister through you, Mr. Chairman, can please explain that. That's one part. We have a second part, and that is the police law and police salary scales. Which police law the minister is indicating needs to be changed? The police law, if we use the word law, would be the kingdom law regulating the police, if we use the law. Unless, again, where, the terminology is being, whether some of it is being lost in translation. But so what changes need to take place in the police law? And where is that at? Whatever the changes are, and to whatever law or ordinance or whatever the case may be, where is that at? And now it brings me to the budget and the proposal from the Minister of Justice with respect to what is needed to pay the justice workers retroactively and going into the future, at least from the numbers that have been shown in the presentation, seems to be clear. I want to ask the Minister of Justice if, in her capacity as member of the Council of Ministers, the minister should have an indication as to where the draft amended budget 2023 is at this moment. Where is it at? Has the amount been taken up in the budget as projected by the Minister of Justice? So the amount to be paid out to justice workers, as proposed by the Minister of Justice, is that the amount that is taken up in the draft amended budget 2023? Let me rephrase that question. What amount is taken up in the draft budget 2023 to pay justice workers their retroactive monies, in addition to increasing, sorry, Mr. Chairman, to increasing the posts that need to be increased, such as the overtime for, amongst others, police officers? Mr. Chairman, the minister would recall our discussion when we were dealing with the budget 2023. And in the budget 2023, an amount of approximately $500,000 was budgeted for overtime for the police officers. When I asked the minister at the time what amount is required for the monthly payment of overtime to our police officers, the answer was 140,000 guilders approximately. My comment at the time to the minister was that the current budget 2023, therefore, contains only the coverage for about 4 months of police overtime. So are these type of posts also going to be amended in the 2023 budget when it comes to Parliament? The reason for stretching the retroactive pay over a period of, I think the minister mentioned, 7 to 10 years, is based on what? Is this spread based on the finances of government or on any other reason? And if not on the finances of government, then based on what? Mr. Chairman, I want to leave it. Let me see if I covered everything that, yes, so the function book, the enactment, the issue of changes that need to take place to the police law, and very importantly is, where is the draft amended budget concretely at this time, that being 2023 and 2024, which is tied to that at this particular time? Mr. Chairman, I await the answers from the minister. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Westcott Williams. Are there any other members of the committee? Yes, we have MP Arundel. You have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry, some of my questions were asked already from other MPs, but mostly we're getting to all of this too. This was based on all the justice workers, not only the police. Basically, everybody, because we have the customs, we have the prisons, we have other people in the Justice Department. If all these things were regulated for them, and then also you're proposing things, MP Westcott says 7 to 10 years. Was this agreed by every individual or only by the unions? Do you have a list of how many people agree on this? Not everybody. Did you find other alternatives, and just in case people don't agree to it? Because we have people who've been waiting for over 13 years, some people over 10 years, I believe, and more. That'll be it for now.
Okay, thank you, MP Arundel. Any others? Yes, MP Hyacinth. Okay, MP Richardson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to my colleagues. Good morning to the minister. Good morning to those who are listening and also those in the tribune here with us. Mr. Chairman, I would like to thank the minister for taking on this huge task for over 13 years and getting the job done. I would like to say for the police officers and all those persons in blue, this is history making for you all in St. Martin. And I also believe in the last 13 years, the two ministers that did this work, this huge task, were from the NA, National Alliance. So therefore, I want to thank them so much for making sure that what was due to the men and women in blue, that they are getting that now. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Richardson. Are there any other members of parliament at this time? I see no need. Before going over to the Minister of Justice to see regarding the answer to questions, I do have a few additional questions as well. Most of my questions, I think, would be financial, and I think it's more appropriate to get the details of that once we have the budget before us. But being that you did indicate some of the financial implications, Minister, I would like to ask, first of all, I see that there's an estimate for wage tax. I don't know if that was an estimate done within your ministry or was that within the Ministry of Finance, but can you explain a little bit more from that? I think it was like 44 million, and I believe it was 8 million that was stated for wage tax. Just wondering how you came to that calculation. Wage tax can vary very greatly in our country. The lower end can be much lower, in some cases exempt, in some cases it can be as high as 40-something%, so it's good to know. More or less, I can see it's an estimate, so it's good that you have a guideline, but what went into figuring out what that estimated wage tax would be? What is interesting when you look at the 44 million that is owed, a significant portion of that basically comes back to the government or a government entity, which is the APS, SZV, and wage tax, the Ministry of Finance, or the coffers of government. So the net amount that would be going, is it what is being budgeted is based on the net, or are we allocating still the full amount of the gross salary on the budget? Because it makes a big difference. So is it, for example, if it's 1 million guilders that we're owing, but we know that the net amount that will be paid is going to be 500,000, would it be the 500,000 we put into the budget, or do we put the full 1 million? So that's the difference between, I think, what was there as 44 versus 20 something, just to understand how that is being done. I saw in the presentation, and Minister, you know, this is something that is always very important to get clarity on, is the sort of the role of the union. And if I understand here, it is the CCSU as a body that sits there. However, I think the ministry went a further step because based on pictures that I'm seeing still the NRPB was present. To your best recollection or understanding, can you explain for the public the role of the CCSU, which union decides on this, kind of dovetailing on the question of MP Arundel? Do we feel that police officers were sufficiently, via their representation, aware or informed, or when this new calculation was proposed, that it can be very clear who are the players that are involved, who are not supposed to be involved? This is always a question that comes up, and I think you need an additional opportunity to make that very clear. Because whatever is being proposed now, the minister has stated she goes through the various channels, ombudsman, union, CCSU, and so on. It would be unfortunate if now, when we reach the final stage, is that at that moment, you get a question as to whether this is something that is agreeable by the police officers or not. Personally, I did get some questions from some who felt that they were not informed that it was going to be 10 years. They were under the impression that it was going to be 5 years. So how does the minister reconcile this in terms of the fact that you went through this process and there might be some that did not expect this? With regards to the further budgets, because from what I understand, this is going to cause an increase going forward in the salaries of justice personnel, and rightfully so. I think we see that the reason for this adjustment is because they need to be placed into their function, their proper functions and so on. At this stage, I know a lot of the attention has been on the function book and the retroactive payment. What consideration has been made for the additional funds that we need to make available to continue in 2024, 25, aside from the retroactive payments? If the budget for justice personnel was 5 million, is it now going to be 6 million, 7 million? Any rough idea on what we can expect also in future budgets as a result of now finally passing the law? I believe that just as was mentioned that you can't, let's say, or the governor would say, not to quote it directly, but you need to make the financial provision before signing this. So I think that onus is absolutely on Parliament now. But also, is that going to apply going forward? Are we going to see an increase in justice personnel, and will the provisions be made to cover that cost? One thing I'd say as a general comment is, in the 2023 amendment, if I understand correctly, one of, I would say, the most important part is this budget amendment, that we can finally do what we have to do by justice workers. But if I understand correctly, this amendment will also include provisions, which has nothing to do with you, Minister, but provisions regarding the negotiations with the Netherlands, the ENIA loans, and so on. We had a meeting recently where various factions expressed differing opinions or some concerns about that. My worry is that this becomes a dual-sided debate. I know how things can be in politics in here, where I want to vote on this because of the police, but I do not agree with this budget, for example, because of ENIA loans. Has any consideration or discussions taken place about perhaps handling this separately? Was it always the intention, as your understanding, that both of these items would be handled in one budget amendment? Maybe administratively it makes more sense. But I, for one, personally, if I have to choose between bailing out Ansari or paying our police officers, I think that's a very clear choice. So if the amendments need to be changed to make that accordingly, that is an option. That is the purview of Parliament to make such changes. But just to understand that within this 2023 budget, from your understanding, this amendment is just about the police, or are there other things that are going to be in this amendment that might take away from this effort? And my final question is, if it is that the reason we chose for 10 years seems to be a financial reason, this is basically what we can afford, well, has consideration been made to find a way to afford more? In other words, with your colleagues within the Ministry of Theatre is, we have different initiatives that we're coming there with the business licenses, tourism numbers are going up, the fees within the Justice Ministry, all of these different things. Because clearly, it would be, you know, we have moments in this past where we have found money for all kinds of things. A good example was the ZBEC situation, where suddenly the government was able to find via the SZV, etc., they were able to find 10 million to pay that situation. How far has the government gone in exhausting every option to say, well, this I think per the schedule we saw, it's 2 million in 2023, then 4 million, 4 million, 4 million. How far have we gone to find creative measures to maybe not have to do that? Is there room within this 10-year process that if by year 2 or year 3, we say, hey, maybe there's another UTS law, maybe there's another bailout by a government-owned entity, I don't know. But how much room is there if the parliament agrees to this to say, well, good news, we don't need to continue with this payment schedule. We have found additional funds, so now we can just pay this off in one shot. Is there room for that? That it's not that no matter what, it have to be 10 years. Is there still opportunity to do a payout if the Parliament or the Ministry of Finance was to find the Minister of Justice the funds? And also on that point, is there, once this is signed and there's a 10-year agreement in place, is that legally binding to the officer? So in other words, if, God forbid, there is a situation where the government is simply unable to pay, or you never know if there's, God forbid, a hurricane, a pandemic, or maybe another government that comes in and just basically does like what it did in the past and say, well, me continuing what the previous minister did. And then the police officer is held in a situation. How much legal merit does the police officer have to say, no, you owe me this year's payment, and there can be no postponement of such payment? That there needs to be some sort of legal guarantee that, hey, can they go take the government to court? Can they demand their funds? Or is this just sort of a promissory process that they can expect at some point in the year they will receive another 1/10 of their disbursement? Those would be my questions for now, Minister. I will adjourn for, oh wait, we have an additional question from MP Arundel.
Sorry, Minister, I have one more question pertaining to the committees where you just said. Was there any feedback concerning the letters that were given to the people for the placement and how they believe? Also, if that process is finished or still continue, because the last I heard, some people say they still haven't received the letters. So I wonder the process still continue on what is the hold up. How come everybody didn't get it yet? If they're doing it per class or per year, I don't know.
Okay, that's it. Okay. Are there any other additional questions before we go to the minister? Should I adjourn for a couple of minutes to discuss, or you want to go right away, Minister? Yeah? Okay. Then what we will do, we'll allow the minister to take the floor. If in between you need some additional time for answering questions, we can take a brief adjournment. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much to you, Mr. Chairman, and to all the MPs that have posed questions or made statements. Beginning with MP Heiliger, what is needed by the governor right now? And this answer is going to kind of somehow tie into the same question, more or less, that MP Westcott Williams asked. The role of the governor, let me start from this standpoint when we talk about what is to be signed by the governor. You have a national decree with general measures that is the police law. What police law are we referring to? From 10-10-10, there is KPNA. That is the law that stands. There was one that was drafted, KPSM. However, that was never passed through the proper legislative channels, so it was never enacted as legal. Yes? So KPNA is what stands. There are aspects to said law that you could say that the justice workers or those from represented within the union that needed to be amended, needed to be changed, needed to be upgraded. When I came into office in 2019, this draft had already gone through the COR, or the Council of Advice. There was a response from the Council of Advice, but the law had never been worked on thereafter or since. We took the advice of the Council of Advice, we made the necessary updates, We went to the CCSU, we worked it out with the unions. I'll talk about the unions as per question as well. And then that law, as it stands right now, is the LB-HUM. That is the national decree with general measures. Tied to that LB-HUM is a Landsbesluit or national decree to enact the new salary scales. Okay? Tied to that is the function book. The function book was approved, so the structure, the positions, the titles, the descriptions, that's the book that is for every department within the Ministry of Justice, with the exception of the Court of Guardianship. Why? The Court of Guardianship needs to be established in the Liol, which is also currently on the legislative track, to come to Parliament for approval so that this department could now be enacted. The function book for the Court of Guardianship is also complete, but it cannot be incorporated just yet until the Liol is approved by Parliament. I'm trying to go slow here because it's a lot of information and I don't want persons to be confused. Okay. There's an LB or a national decree to enact the function book. So there are 2 national decrees, and there is 1 national decree with general measures. That's the LB-HUM, which is the police law. LB for the salary scales, LB to enact the function book. So that's a package of 3 that is accompanied by the calculations of what is owed retroactive and what will be needed going forward. That makes up the entire package. What is the role of the governor? He has to sign the LB-HUM, or the national decree with general measures. He has to sign the national decree for the salary scales. He has to sign the national decree for the function book. Then those items comes back to the Minister of Justice to co-sign with him, and the legal package is complete. That is where we are. Why is the budget not here today? What is the holdup? MP Bryson delved into it. MP Bryson made mention that the incorporation of the NEA situation has now also been incorporated in the budget amendment. Was this something that I anticipated? None of us did. How do I feel about the position? I'm not particularly happy about it, especially if it's going to infringe on what we need as the Ministry of Justice to be complete. We've worked tirelessly on this matter, and it is not fair to the justice workers and all of this administration that has worked to be able to bring this decade-plus situation to an end finally. I am concerned, if I may speak freely. I'm concerned about what is going to happen, but I need us to find a way. Throughout the years, many have called me to Parliament, many have demonstrated against the minister of wanting this done, and we have done what is necessary. We need this budget to pass. And I'll just mention that my last update as to the status of the budget is that it is currently going through the legal review, so that would be with Yazet and Way. It comes to the Council of Ministers within short. It has to go to the Council of Advice. It has to come to Parliament. So we are all just pushing behind. I'm just happy that it is out of the organization at this point in time, and it's going through the necessary legal review. But one thing I can assure you, the Ministry of Justice has completed all that it needed to. We are awaiting for this budget to be approved. Response to placement letters. Did everyone receive the letters? As far as I can recall from the placement team, the letters were received. There are some persons who are to receive reprints or reissuement of letters because certain information in the letters are not per se 100%. So those still need to happen. We also have some persons within the organization who, yes, is looking for their placement letter, but their history of movement from different departments over the years makes their particular situation complex. So that iron out that information is what brings a delay with certain individuals, not many. I think it's maybe about 10 or 12 persons who are still pending because their situation is a bit peculiar. Yeah? They're not forgotten about, but they know as well that their situation is not straightforward, and it has to be ironed out. Between MP Heilager and MP Arundel, I think I was asked a question along the lines of, was everybody pleased? That is not realistic. Everyone will never be pleased with the situation. And where does that come from? One of the conversations that stands out greatly in these discussions is a lot of persons seem to anticipate this process to be one of a promotion. Not a placement in where I am, but that I would be promoted into something that I believe I deserve. And that requires a conversation. There's a lot of people who are accepting to it because they understood that now that we have a function book, I am now being aligned with my current position into the position that is stipulated of my job description. But then you have those persons who are saying, no, I don't agree with this because I feel I've been in this position long enough and I should be promoted into something else. That's a different discussion because this is not a promotion process, it's a placement process. I am aware that our legal counsel, who is also a part of, well, not a part of the appeals committee, but an objection committee that we have. Those objection letters have been received and have been responded to. However, there is still a situation where the appeals committee comes into effect technically when you get your Landsbesluit. Remember, there is a period of time that once you receive your Landsbesluit, you can appeal it. That's the role of the appeals committee. And as I mentioned in my presentation, the placement and appeals committee will remain because they are established by Landsbesluit, so they are established by national decree legally, and we will not discontinue with these committees until this entire process is over. Installments. I'm so sorry. Yes. Tiffany is not here with us. I'm going to come back to the installment breakdown that was asked because it was on the screen, but we'll put it back. If I can just go on to the questions of MP Westcott Williams. I gave the breakdown about what is the LB hum, the LB and the LB. I spoke about the enactment still to come, LB tied to the budget. Yes, it is. And I explained where it's tied to the budget in the sense of you know, the overall financial obligation must be known in order for us to have been able to establish what the country must budget on an annual basis to ensure that those that are entitled to will receive consistently. So not that you receive a portion now and then you don't receive the next year, but that it is proportionate and consistent. I believe I've given a thorough explanation on this question, police law and police salary scales, which one needs to be changed, what changes need to take place in the police law. I've given a total overview, I believe, but MP Westcott Williams can advise whether that was clear. I've given where the draft amendment is now. What is the amount taken up in the, again, I'm gonna have to ask that we allow Tiffany to return so that she can put that on screen. With regards to overtime, MP Westcott made mention about a question she had posed during the budget debate because there was a concern about how much overtime was actually considered. I can say that I do believe an update as to how much in overtime has actually been paid out, because as far as I know, we've had no challenges with paying our overtime. So when the Minister of Finance comes with the budget amendment, I'm sure he'll be able to show actuals and how provisions are continuously made to ensure overtime is being paid. It is asked, the spread of the 7 to 10 years payment is based on what? This comes from our covenant. And the covenant is an agreement that was made on the CCSU platform. Let's talk a little bit about the CCSU. It follows the social statute. It is the legal framework or body that is required to host the unions who represent the civil servants. Yes? MP Arundel asked a question along the lines, whom did I confirm or did I meet with individual officers to confirm that they agree? So the law isn't necessarily structured that way. Yes, we can receive objections from individuals. Yes, individuals can express themselves. However, as per my statements from the onset of this, I am following the legal structure as to how this must be done. And the legal structure incorporates the CCSU. CCSU is made up of Y2, WICSU, and ABVO. NAPB, as I mentioned in my presentation, is formally not a member of the CCSU. However, they represent quite a number of our officers. As such, as minister, I made it possible for them to come in, and I must say that the Y2 gave them the floor, gave them the word, gave them an opportunity to use their vote to contribute in the interest of the officers they represent. So MP Bryson made mention that he's concerned that we would arrive somewhere and that question would be asked. I can assure you, and it is documented, that fair and complete opportunity was given to all unions. Again, I want to come back to the covenant. It's a good thing we had the covenant, because the reality of the situation is we know for a fact that our country cannot afford to pay some 44-point-something million guilders in one shot. We know this. This is the reason that logic came into play, and we have to come to an agreement at the table. How can we spread this out so that that annual amount can be considered? And if we look at the screen, we can see clearly what is budgeted in 2023. And when we talk about multi-annual budgeting, it's stipulated right there. 6-point-something million is mentioned. Sorry, I can't see it that far. 6 million. 6 million is considered an annual basis. You can see what the disbursement is within the 7 years, and then the disbursement within the 10-year period. Individuals who are retired, I'm sorry, we did provide the presentation for Parliament. Many of them can't see it from this distance. I do apologize for that. But in your presentation, you can see the breakdown clearly. When the budget comes, you will also see the consideration there. This is why it was important for the Ministry of Justice and Finance to have the time to provide said information so that the budget could make sense, or the budget amendment could make sense. This is also what His Excellency requires to see, to ensure, again, that there is consistency for the justice workers. MP, if I can move on to MP Arundel's questions, he says, based on all justice workers or just the police? The function book is based on all justice workers, so that's the placement process that is applicable to all justice workers. The police law speaks for itself, it's for police. And finally, the salary scales is for police. But the function book in itself has its own scale breakdown and so forth. So all justice workers are going to recognize a difference or increase in their salary. It might not seem as major or a lot to some, but there is a difference. I just gave indication about the relevance of the covenant, which was done with all unions, and I also gave the breakdown as to how all unions were 110% a part of this process. I think I'm moving on to the questions from MP Bryson. MP Bryson, you yourself indicated that your questions are very financial. Yes, they are very technical as well. And for that reason, I would ask if you would allow us to be able to provide you that breakdown in writing, because I think it's going to be a little too complex and confusing to try to do that over this meeting. But it's a case where if you receive it in writing, the opportunity is there for another presentation specifically for that, in the event as well that when Minister of Finance comes, if it's not clear there, we are open to provide those details even more. And let me also mention that we continue to meet with staff, be it by class, be it by individual, the team, placement team, the HR team. Sitting next to me is our acting SG, who is very thorough in human resource services. And these types of details are also provided to staff, because there are some staff within us who is not just interested in receiving a payment. They want a thorough breakdown and understanding what it is they're obligated to. As well as I indicated, MP Bryson, you can receive that breakdown in writing to be explaining where those portions are going, and when we talk about the gross of it, and then the breakdown of RPS and the other premiums, etc., how that goes. You asked about future budgets. As you can see on the screen, we have all of that incorporated. You've asked, have discussions taken place to separate the budget? You know, I'm a team player. And I'm not trying to make anything difficult for anyone, but my priority is the Ministry of Justice. My priority is the personnel of this ministry. As such, my focus and only selfish interest is to make sure that this budget passes so that my staff can get what is due to them, so that all the hard work that has been done to bring this to finalization can finally come to fruition, so that we can prepare the LBAs that we must and send to His Excellency per individual, so that my staff can get the salaries that they're entitled to, so that my staff can get the updated job letters that they need so they can establish their lives as they wish. That is my selfish desire. I would like to know as well, MP Bryson, what is the opportunity or options available to be able to pay staff earlier. We are always looking for opportunity. You made mention about efforts of the Ministry of TEAT. I think Minister of Finance can give you some more input, because to be quite honest with you, whilst I am a part of the discussions, what I'm understanding is that much of these efforts still have a ways to go. And for me, that is concerning, because when we say a ways to go, are the efforts that needs to be taken so that the type of revenue we need can be achieved within the short term? Where are we with those? Of course, that comes in from another ministry, no pun intended, but it will be great if we cannot have to span it over 10 years, but pay our justice workers earlier than that, of course. That is something that I would want. However, I have to operate from a practical perspective, thereby not giving my justice workers the impression that something can happen sooner, give them the ability to have these high hopes and then let them down. That is not my objective. So hence the reason that an agreement over a 10-year span was achieved, so that we can be realistic with the execution of payment. MP Arundel wanted feedback on the placement letters. I think I've given that. And no, the process of the letters is not finished, because we are still, as I made mention, these two committees will live until this process is complete. I don't know if I've missed any questions. A lot of persons had. I missed one, which was?
Just tied to that question about the payments, was also the question about what is given to the individual as a guarantee regarding this payment schedule. So do they get like a letter, and can they hold government accountable to that payment schedule?
That comes to life in your LB. In your Landspecialite, it will have the breakdown of what you're entitled to, and that is your legal and binding document to confirm such.
Members, the minister gave quite some answers there, and indeed, Minister, the financial questions I had posed, I'm happy to get those in writing. If there are any other questions, or in case any questions were missed, I open the floor back to the members. I see MP Grisha Heilige-Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, through you, I would like to just, again, for clarity's sake, it is now the laws, the LBHAM, the LBAs, all is right now at the governor's, on the governor's desk to be signed off, to be ratified. It has been signed off completely already. I would just like the minister through you to clarify that. So has it been signed off completely? It's ready? I'm not sure. And again, I am confused because the last time the Minister of Finance was here, and I know I've just spoke to one of my colleagues just to confirm that I heard the exact same thing. The Enya saga is supposed to be coming out of the 2024 budget. So it's not so. It's coming out of it's supposed to be amended, taken into consideration in the 2023 budget, because I'm a bit confused there. And there's a question that the minister didn't answer, is the pensioners, are they also part of this 7 to 10 year installment, or are they going to get paid in full? And lastly, I'm seeing 7 to 10 years. So has it been confirmed that it's 10 years? Has it been confirmed that it's 7 years, or we're still trying to figure out the amount of years? Because I'm seeing 7 to 10. I'm not sure if it's 7 or 10. I want exactly, is it been completely confirmed? And my last question, and I'm trying to see if I understand the scenario completely, and maybe the minister can give me confirmation on that as well. They met in June, July with the CCSU, all of them, including NRPB. It was discussed that these installments were to take place, and that every union since a couple months ago were already made aware that it's going to be between 7 to 10 years. So from what I'm gathering here, seemingly some of the union members have not informed their own people. And I don't think that's the fault of the Minister of Justice, my personal opinion. If the Minister of Justice already informed them that it's going to be 7 to 10 years, then it is at the purview of the union members to inform the people accordingly. Am I understanding it correctly? That's what I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, MP Heilige-Martin. Next, we have MP Westcott Williams.
Thank you once again, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, just 2 or 3 follow-up questions. The minister indicated that the budget is now with YZ and Way, the Legal Affairs Department of Government. Can the minister explain why the budget at this stage, so the draft budget that needs to come, is at Legal Affairs? So what's the objective of it being there at this time before Council of Advice before? So if the minister can give a further and better explanation of the location of the draft budget 2023. The matter of the what we're seeing on the screen right now, the payment disbursement plan, and the answer of the minister to my question why this choice was that it's based on the covenant. The decision in the covenant was based on what considerations? And do I read the picture that is before us right now? The amounts that I mentioned there, starting at, let's say, more than 5,000 up to 15,000, will be paid over 2 years. Are those the individual amounts? So if someone is entitled to the figure anywhere between 5,000 and 15,000 will be paid over 2 years, but someone entitled to more than 100,000 guilders would be paid over 10 years. Is that how I should read the picture in front of us, or is there another explanation for the spread between 2 years, starting with 2 years and up to over 10 years? So if the minister can also go into that, what exactly that means for the individual, and of course, for the budget. So, Mr. Chairman, yes, if the minister can further clarify those matters. Thank you.
Thank you, and we have an, MP Arundel. After that, I'm going to adjourn for 2 minutes, though.
Minister, only for one question. Concerning to the people who haven't received the letters, do they have anybody who could call, email, or address to the matters? So they inform them who they could go by? How about it?
That's it? Okay, so clarity on who to go to if you have a question. I will adjourn for 3 minutes, and then we return with the minister to answer further questions. Thank you and good morning once again, members of the Committee of Justice and those viewing. We are here in the Justice Committee meeting discussing an update regarding the function book and retroactive payments for justice personnel. I was going to give the floor to you, Minister. However, in the meantime, there are two other members who asked for the floor, so I will let them ask their additional questions before we go back over to the Minister. We have MP Arundel.
Minister, good morning. A question also for the town hall meeting, whereby you stated that if a person wanted payment in one full shot, it would be possible. That what you stated. They also want to know that you stated that the person will have to sign or disclaimer, if that still is possible.
Okay. Also, yeah, speak into the mic and
Sorry.
also remember via the chair.
Sorry, via the chair, sorry. That also that you stated on a town hall meeting whereby you stated that if someone wanted the payment in one shot, it's possible. And also, if the person wanted the thing in one shot, also there will be a disclaimer, if that's still possible, if that is true.
Thank you. That's it, MP Arundel? Yeah. Next, we have MP Grisha Heilige-Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, the question was posed to all of us as MPs. So just to clarify that question, during the town hall meeting, Minister stated that they will have the installments in 3 to 5 years. That was what was mentioned, and that they would have an option to get up to have a payout figure if they so choose. And then a couple of weeks later, I don't remember if the town hall meeting was before meeting with CCSU. Maybe the minister can elucidate a little bit more on that. And then after that meeting, I guess after the town hall meeting was the meeting with CCSU, and then that changed. We needed some clarity on that. I asked through you, Mr. Chairman, I asked the Minister of Justice how many, well, not off the record, how many seniors do we have? I'm asking it for the records. How many on pension do we have for payout? And why can we pay them out in one shot instead of 4 years? Why can we, what's that amount for the pensioners, for the seniors? Especially the seniors. I mean, I'm sure they would want to have their money right now. 4 years for seniors, that for me, I would love to know what the number is around that. If you could just give me an approximation and why, is it such a high number that we can't pay them out, or why 4 years max? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Heilige-Martin. And Minister, just as a follow-up to one of the questions I posed earlier, indeed, it appears because one of the things was maybe there was a misunderstanding, and you'll answer that regarding whether it's 2023, 2024. My understanding has been based also on media reports, based on what I heard the State Secretary saying, that there was an amendment coming to Parliament for which the only budget you can amend now is 2023 that would include ENIA. And that's why I brought forward that point. And that's why it gives even more credence to the type of discussion we had about here we have this ENIA situation now indirectly potentially affecting our justice personnel. And it adds even more of a credence to finding another alternate measure that is, of course, not more for you. You rightfully state your priority, and that is your function, is the Ministry of Justice. But we as Parliament, we are the ones that approve the budget. We are the ones that can amend the budget. And we are the ones, myself and the faction leader of National Alliance have expressed some concerns about this whole ENIA situation and loan and so on. And it would be unfortunate if that distracts from what we need to do for our justice workers. So that's why I expressed that concern, and maybe the minister can just confirm the year in which that amendment for ENIA, if that is also within the budget amendment that would relate to justice workers. Minister, you're prepared to answer, or you need some additional time? No? Straight into it. Very good. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, MP. Sorry. MP Heilige wants to know if the governor has already signed. MP, no, the governor cannot sign if, in accordance to the kingdom law, he is required to receive the total calculations. In addition to finding the total calculations, He needs confirmation that the funding that is required to pay the justice workers is available. Keep in mind, once an employee has an LB in their hand, they automatically have claim. So we have to make sure that the financial availability is there. Hence the reason that the budget amendment or the signing of this package I just explained hinges on the amendment coming to Parliament and being approved. Once that approval happens, then the governor will receive the package. Let me reiterate, the governor has received the package in the past, which was in 2022, December, we sent it. So the legislative aspect of it, the governor has reviewed. It has been through the COR, etc. The calculations, a presentation and total breakdown was provided to the governor. So the governor is thoroughly informed. What he awaits is the budget being passed. Then he can sign. What must I do? Can I pick it up or? Sorry. All right. I feel like I'm lost. Where? Sorry for the delay. Pensioners included, the breakdown, you're asking why can't it be 4 years? The ability to tell you off the hand at this moment how many pensioners we have and what that total tallies to is not possible. We didn't bring those in, that data with us. But the reality is, if we were to look at the screen and the breakdown that we have, there are some persons that are entitled to some significant amounts, right? The purpose of the budget and having the breakdown and what we can do on an annual basis comes from a realistic standpoint. What type of availability of resources, financial resources, does the country actually have? Of course, if we could pay persons out today because the money is available, that's what we would want to do. But that's not our reality. Again, I would not want to give individuals the impression that they can get something 100% immediately, and that is not our reality as a country. MP Westcott as well, while I'm on this screen, asks questions like, you know, is this based on the individual? Yes, it is. If an individual is entitled to a compensation of 5,000 guilders, then we're looking at seeing if that person can get it in one installment, because you don't have to wait multiple years to receive 5,000 guilders. However, as the figure increases, because there are so many individuals that have to receive compensation, you have to spread the budget fairly so that each individual that is entitled to can get a piece of the pie, right? You might have a pensioner that's entitled to 100,000. How are we going to pay that out in one shot if you have others who are also entitled? It comes back to there was a class that had taken the government to court. Give you an example. The court ruled in their favor, of course, and there is a disbursement to receive. They received the LBAs, but I, as minister, made an executive decision to please hold off from paying out those monies that's attached to it. Why? Because those monies would have eaten in totally to the 2.3 million that we had reserved on the 2023 budget, and the others that are entitled to would not receive. I didn't feel as minister that would be fair to those who did not take the procedure to court. On top of that, imagine paying that out based on a court verdict. That means everyone will be under the impression, oh, well, then the way for me to get my money is go to court. We bankrupt in the country. So as minister, I had to make an executive decision to say, we can issue you your LBAs. This is your guarantee of what you're entitled to, but I have to consider all others as well. MP Arundel, I feel like I'm missing Westcott. Why the budget at Yezetten Way? That is the legislative process. We have to send all major items as such to the legal department for them to do their legal review. It will then come to COM with an advice that advises that we have done what we needed to, or if there's any amendments that is necessary, if there's anything that stands out. And then once all is in order, it goes on to the Council of Advice. That is just the legislative process. Payment disbursement plan based on the covenant. Why 7 to 10 years? So MP Heiliger was also seeking to get clarity as to the bounds between a 7 and 10 year. At the end of the day, the max year is 10. MP Bryson asks, can something be done before then? Our breakdown shows that there's a payment schedule that allows an opportunity from 1 to 10. So it's just about spreading the opportunity to compensate. The maximum term that we've agreed to is 10 years. Who is able to get paid out within that span of time is how the execution will be. I'm not so sure why we're focusing so much into the 7 to 10, but the reality is if we can be complete with this in 7 years, that'll be great. If you can be complete in 1 year because some sort of brilliant thought comes about that generates all the money we need to pay this, we pay it. But the flexibility is warranted, it is necessary in order for us not to give any type of false impressions. I think the disbursement plan, I was clear about that. MP Arundel said, what about those, who do they contact? What is the email address? hr@justice.gov.sx. hr@justice.gov.sx is the email address that any justice worker who is seeking to get some sort of clarity or would want to express themselves, they can send it to that email address, as well as we have an open door policy for the individuals to come to our Illidge Road office, which is where the HR department is, and they can seek an appointment with the SG or the acting head of our HR department to be able to gain clarity. MP Heiliger Martin. How many on pension? So that number I answered, we don't have it with us. But of course, we can provide you that in writing. MP Bryson is asking with regards to where is the ENIA consideration taken up, and that is by confirmation of the Minister of Finance. In the amendment, the budget amendment that is coming, that is where the consideration, sorry? Yes, the 2023 budget amendment, as you so stated, that's the only one we can amend right now. That's where it is, and I'm really concerned as to where we are or how we're going to manage this, because as I stated earlier, my focus is the Justice Ministry and our workers. I hope I've answered all the questions.
Thank you, Minister. I see MP Grisha Heiliger Martin would like the floor, and I don't know if the questions from MP Arundel and Heiliger Martin regarding the town hall meeting, so shall I allow her to answer that and then come back to the MPs? So, Minister?
Thank you very much. What I said at the town hall meeting is that everybody has the right to submit an objection if they do not agree with the payment installment. You have a right to subject that, and a discussion could be had. But the opportunity to state at that time that you could be paid out in full contradicts even having a covenant. So how does the minister indicate, yes, you could be paid out in full? What the minister said, what I said is, submit your objection and it will be reviewed.
Thank you. And MP Heiliger Martin would like the floor once again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, just clarification. So the minister met with CCSU in July to discuss a payment plan of 7 to 10 years. And the minister also had a town hall meeting in July where, again, it is stated that she not only mentioned what she just stated before, but she also stated that they can get paid in 3 to 5 years. Is this correct? And what are the days? I'd like to understand, did she meet with the CCSU a couple days before the town hall meeting, the same day as the town hall meeting? There was months in between to allow the unions to inform their people, to let them know that it's going to be 7 to 10 years. I like to have a clear and concise timeline. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP. We go back to the minister.
Yes, thank you. So, MP, there was first on the table a signed agreement of 3 to 5 years. That was before the calculations and the total sum was identified. Once we recognize that 44 million guilders is what's due, we recognize the necessity to go back to the CCSU. As I mentioned in my presentation, I requested a meeting and we went back to the CCSU. We brought them the breakdown, okay? Bringing them that breakdown, it was then understood, indeed, it's too large of a figure to maintain a covenant agreement of 3 to 5 years. We then came to the consensus of the 10-year. So we now must remove the discussion of a 3 to 5 years because it no longer exists. It is now superseded by an agreement that goes to 10 years. Okay, we have it here signed. Do you have the agreement that we can put it on the screen so you can see all the union members who signed, and as well we had the pictures up. Okay, good. By extension to that, we strategically scheduled the town hall and all the necessary meetings, including me sending the request to Parliament because of this particular reason. I didn't want a buzzing as to what all was said and persons interpret information how they want. They come to MPs and say something outside of what was stated. I specifically sent on June 30th my request to come to Parliament so I could provide you with a specific and detailed update. Details that were shared, as I mentioned, the Council of Ministers, the Council of Advice, the Governor, the CCSU, the Town Hall meeting. All these entities received the same details that I'm providing to the Parliament today and the public of St. Martin. Yes? So we provided these updates step by step. That 3 to 5 years should not even be a discussion anymore because the legal entity or the legal body that is responsible for representing our civil servants, being the CCSU, made up of all the unions, is where this covenant, updated covenant agreement was made. And that is where it was agreed upon. And might I add, there was somewhere, I think it's MP Arundel that made mention, if I know whether all civil servants are represented in the unions, we have to follow the legal structure. The social statute governs that, and that is what we followed. If we have staff that are not a part of the unions, then again, I'm going to say it here. You can submit your writing, but we need to see proof that you're not a member of. And then that's a separate discussion we can have with you. However, at the end of the day, we have to honor and respect the legal process. Tiffany, she's asking if you can expand. And I think you also have to go down so you can see the signatures. Wait, go back down for me. Go to the date. Can we see the date on that? Oh, that's the addendum to it. But what about the one from... Oh, so go to the date so we can see when it was signed. Yes? See my signature up at the top? You can see on the 6th of July is when we all representation. Oh, there's another signature with also the date that confirms it. All unions signed on to this amendment. I stated it before. I know that the process is long, but I followed the legislative process to ensure that at the end, when the justice workers receive a package, it will be one that is binding and that is firm. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We have an additional question from MP Westcott. William?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Through you to the Minister, does the Minister have any even rough idea as to when the draft budget can be at Parliament, given some of the steps and that were just explained by the Minister?
Yeah. I can't get it on. What happened here? Yeah.
It's okay. MP Westcott, I know that attached to this budget there is a Spoot article, Spoot Balang, expeditious stamp on it. So we are all seeking for the judicial department to be able to be expeditious in their review. We would appreciate the Council of Advice recognizing the urgency and that their review would also be expeditious. I know that the budget amendment had already been at the Council of Advice, but due to the fact that the Ministry of Justice did complete what was necessary, it was pulled back to be able to include this update. And at the same time, the Enya matter apparently came about. So I'm hoping that, considering that there is some familiarity with these entities, it will be able to be processed quickly. I'm also hoping that within a few weeks we will have it to Parliament.
Okay. Is that all from the members of Parliament? I think we've had quite a good string of questions and interaction with you, Minister. Before closing, I would just like to say, I think it's interesting, a bit of a deja vu sometimes, where we handle stuff related to the police and the public, members of Parliament, ministers, unions get a bit caught up, in a sort of a he say, she say situation. What I appreciate about your presentation today is that it has been very clear who was present, who was not present, who agreed, who didn't agree. My thing would be ultimately, and when I speak to, let's say, members that were like MP Arundel, who was a former member of the police force himself, he has some of them that are just simply out of the loop. But then I would say, well, what is the role of your union in terms of informing everybody about these types of agreements that we have here on the screen before us? My concern ultimately is none of that. It is the individual officers getting something that is commensurate to what they want. From what I gather from this meeting, it is similar to a lot of the things that we have had to handle. The government has to do what they can do in the best of their ability, and then Parliament has to take a decision or improve upon that decision with our own proposals. We did that with the COHO, we're doing that right now with the Enya loan, and apparently we're going to be doing so soon with the police. If members of Parliament, like I have done or others have done, have alternate solutions or proposals, those should be presented. I think there will be sufficient opportunity to do that in the coming weeks. I think what we have here coming from the Ministry of Justice is this is the best we were able to put together. Myself, I will continue to look at it. Of course, we need to see what the budget is. One of the things that does come to mind, however, is that's why I asked the question, and I know I'll get it in writing, is that a gross amount for this payment, let's say 4 million guilders, is being put on the budget. However, a large portion of that is coming back to the government. So what I would look at is, did we also increase our income commensurate to that? Because then, while we are putting this additional amount as an expense, maybe we simultaneously understated our income. Guess what that gives you? That gives you more room. That gives you more room to perhaps pay more or to handle another expense related to justice or something else. So again, that's to me, at least how I like to function. I like to look at those type of, even though it might be a minor thing, maybe it's only an additional 800,000 guilders, but it could have been an oversight, it could have been something they didn't think about, or maybe it is incorporated, I don't know. That's the direction we will choose to go, at least our faction, is looking at it line by line to see where are the opportunities to provide even more to our justice personnel if they exist. As I said before, we have found money in the past for all sorts of things. We found money to pay off VAMED for a hospital, just for them not to work, for us to choose who we want. Allegedly, a pair of 1 million euros was found. We found money for ZBEC. We found all of these things. But that was on the orders of Parliament at the time. Parliament meetings were called in order to say, government, pay this. So, Minister, for my part, your job is done. My job begins now. And that's how I plan to handle this situation going forward. And I think what we do is we have a proposal, either we approve it or we improve upon it, but I will not just be voting no just for voting's sake, as some have done in the past. Members, I would like to thank you. Yeah, oh, you want to add something? Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What I want to add is you've mentioned that the he say, she say, which is something that I've dealt with from the onset of taking this position, and I still see it today. what I did was I had an intranet established for the Ministry of Justice. These updates are provided to staff via their emails. Staff, I am encouraging you to check your emails and read as well for yourself. I remember we even launched a newsletter providing a lot of details that a lot of staff was still saying they were not aware of, because I recognize that there is a breakdown indeed with staff being able to get the information. But as minister, I have created a platform and the information is provided. Check your emails. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, but just to comment on that briefly, just do recognize, like MP Arundel pointed out, somehow, some way, despite those efforts, some officers are falling behind the informational crack. It might be, I don't know if the email isn't registered or if they're not checking or whatever it is, but you have indicated as an alternative the email address. And actually, I got a message, if you can confirm if that is correct, because you had put 2 dots in the email. It was HR at, so it is .gov.sx. Okay, just the URL sounds a little strange, so that's why we were asked to confirm. Justice.gov.sx. Okay, great. Members, for this agenda point, I think we've reached the conclusion of that. We do have one other additional agenda point, so we will close this agenda and move to the next. Here we go. Agenda point 2 is an update regarding the draft criminal procedure code. Members of the committee and minister, I'll give a bit of a synopsis regarding the criminal procedure code so that we can understand to how we got here. The Parliament of St. Martin first received the draft national ordinance establishing a new criminal procedure code on June 19th, 2019. The Central Committee meetings were held in which ministers were given the opportunity to ask questions to the Minister of Justice on this draft was then concluded September 12, 2019. So on September 4, 2019, the then Chairperson of Parliament sent a letter to the Public Prosecutor, the Joint Court, and the Bar Association requesting their opinions on the proposed Crown Witness regulation in the new draft criminal procedure code that was currently being handled by Parliament. These views were received from the aforementioned institutions in September and October of 2019. The handling in plenary of the draft criminal procedure code started then in October 11th, 2019. The Chairperson of Parliament informed members, however, that the meeting would be adjourned until further notice to get the necessary feedback, as was mentioned before. This public meeting was convened then on the new parliamentary term on March 6, 2020. After this, the meeting did not continue, and Parliament, via the Committee of Justice and the Presidium, decided to hire a firm to analyze the draft criminal procedure code and come with suggestions and recommendations regarding the draft or present our own draft. Parliament received the first analysis from the firm on June 22nd, 2021. Parliament also discussed this topic and the analysis made in tripartite meetings with delegations from the Parliaments of Aruba and Curacao. The Committee of Justice has also had several meetings with the firm consulting on this project. Thereafter, the committee decided on a priority listing of articles and topics that should be dealt with based on the analysis presented. This was done in August of 2022. On February 10th, 2023, the Committee of Justice sent a letter to the Minister of Justice via the Chairperson of Parliament, this is IS 444 of the 2022-23 parliamentary year, updating the Minister of the Committee's work and requesting an update from the Minister on the discussions with the CFATF and four-country discussion regarding the changes to the Criminal Procedure Code. On June 8th, 2023, the Committee of Justice sent a letter to the Chairperson of Parliament submitting a report regarding the draft Criminal Procedure Code. The Committee of Justice sent to the government a report regarding the draft Criminal Procedure Code directed to the Minister of Justice and requesting the Central Committee to forward it to the Minister of Justice. This was done via the Central Committee finally on June 14th, 2023. On September 28, 2023, Parliament received a letter from the Minister of Justice in which the Minister gives an update on the draft and proposes to arrange a special session for the members of Parliament to receive a presentation from Professor Den Doolder and colleagues to discuss all remaining concerns and questions. This document is registered under IS 056 of the 23-24 parliamentary year and has been shared with members of parliament. With that synopsis, to put it very short, the original criminal procedure code did not pass, was not handled in a public meeting. This committee worked tirelessly with our law firm to come up with alternate proposals with a fully drafted ordinance, so an amendment to the criminal procedure code ordinance, including the articles and the toelichting. This was sent to the Minister of Justice. We have since received another suggestion also from the Minister of Justice. So with that, Minister, I would ask if you have any opening remarks before we go over to the members of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as you so stated, I have sent a letter with responses to aspects of the amendments that are proposed by the Parliament of St. Martin. The delicacy of this particular draft, I think it would be wise if we can allow my suggestion to be honored, whereby the professor is prepared to come to give a detail and have more of a dialogue on these proposals of amendments. If the Parliament would accept that, then I would ask if this particular agenda point could be postponed until then. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. The proposal would be for the Committee of Justice to have a presentation from Professor Den Doolder, and that we would have that discussion with that interaction with you. The Minister would also be present for that, together with Den Doolder. Can you explain a bit for the committee and the public's edification the role of Den Doolder and why you believe he's adequate to have that discussion with?
Yes, Professor Den Doolder is the part of the author, the drafting of this particular uniform law. One of the things that I was concerned about is the position of Parliament to make amendments to it. But of course, in my discussions, I will learn that uniform or uniformity does not mean per se exact. So the flexibility and opportunity to make some amendments to the law does exist, and so I'm a little bit more relaxed about that. However, to the specification of the changes that are requested, I think a discussion is warranted by the very person who is the responsible for drafting same.
Thank you, Minister. Before turning to the committee regarding that proposal, I do want to ask one additional question. We took note of the statement from the Joint Court where they seem to not have heard anything regarding, I don't want to misquote the good gentleman, but basically that calling on Parliament to handle this. To your best of your ability, are the courts as well as the prosecutors aware of the process that I outlined, that we were busy handling this? We'd have had over 600 pages of analysis presented to us. We then submitted an alternate legislation to you. Have they been informed of this via the Minister of Justice?
That update about recent response to yours was not relayed to them. However, MP, to be realistic and honest here, this has been in the hands of Parliament for quite some time. I had sent a letter asking for an update previously, and I was told to even watch my tone when I asked what's the status of same, because they had been asking me about it. So it is not a matter of something that just came to Parliament. It has over 2 years that it was with Parliament to have these amendments done. So I can easily provide them with a copy of the response that I gave, but the courts is not asking about something that has been, in our handling or in the handling of Parliament today. This is over 2 years.
Thank you, Minister. The reason, however, I asked that question is that, again, I think you are familiar, especially now, with how legislative trajectory is something that can easily take 2 years. I mean, if you look at the original draft to the Criminal Procedure Code that was presented to Parliament in 2019, the drafting of that law dates back to 2015, after the BAP amendment, the BAP law, as we call it, was taking place. They immediately started making these things because we were going through the FATF cycle. I think Parliament and this Justice Committee, having even been able to analyze all these changes, present a full draft legislation in 2 years, I think that's pretty good speed, to be honest. Because if we compare it to what governments have been able to produce in terms of the Criminal Procedure Code from 2015 to 2019, a Justice Committee has presented a very detailed amendment to the Criminal Procedure Code in half that time. So, of course, is it taking a lot of time? Yes, but I do think that that information should be shared with the third party so that they understand that this wasn't just like, okay, we had a meeting and we threw a few ideas. There was an in-depth analysis done, which was over 600 and something pages, and I believe the legislation that we presented is close to 100 pages. So there is significant work that was done by the Committee of Justice and Parliament by extension, and that I think the work has come to a good fruition. If your proposal is to, before handling further steps taken with that law, that we have a meeting with Dan Dulder, I will put that to the committee shortly, but I do see MP Grisha Heiliger Martin would also like the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Clarity to you, Mr. Chairman. What exactly, because I may have missed it, I haven't read it, what exactly was sent to the Minister of Justice, Van Dulden, this person, Van Dulden? He has our entire worksheet, because right now, Mr. Chairman, we still have to discuss internally if we agree to the changes. We haven't even had that discussion yet. Like really agree to, the changes has to come. We still have to have more input, more discussion on because I think we had an overall, the last time we had an overall meeting, but did we agree to all the changes, all done? Every single article? And was every single thing sent to them, or anything only pertaining to the CFATF laws? Was the entire document sent to the Minister of Justice with all the amendments, or just those pertaining to the CFATF laws, is my question to you, Mr. Chairman, just for clarity's sake.
Yes, indeed. The Committee of Justice, seeing that our analysis that we received of the entire Criminal Procedure Code, like I mentioned, was close to 700 pages, the decision of the committee was to then prioritize mostly CFATF-related issues, but also some important quick win issues such as language, etc. Those were compiled, that was drafted, it was approved by the Committee of Justice, and then approved by Parliament to send on to the Minister. So that is what was sent, which was approved by Parliament to go to the Minister. This is from the Minister, the 28th. Yes. And there were various details that were sent to us in this document from the Minister, IS 056. At this time, what I would like to ask of the committee, if we would be interested in having that presentation from Professor Dan Dulder. If there's no objection to that, then that will be scheduled by this committee indeed. So, Minister, for further clarity then, let's say the legislative trajectory of what was presented to you would be on hold until we have this meeting, and then we can discuss a way forward. Am I understanding correctly? Members of the committee, then you understand correctly the way we will handle going forward. MP Heiliger Martin.
Mr. Chairman, would that meeting be a closed-door meeting or open?
Personally, I would think that should be a closed-door meeting, just as we've handled the everything the Justice Committee handled related to the drafting of the Criminal Procedure Code was done in closed door. So unless the committee feels otherwise, I think we'll continue with that same method. Is that okay? Yes, I see no objection. So, Minister, thank you for that update. I don't know if you have anything else at this time. Any other members at this time? That not being the case. Members of the committee, I thank you very much for your attention in today's meeting, where we handled two very important agenda points, got some significant and important answers from the government, and the public has also received this information as well. So I thank you all for your participation in this meeting, and I hereby close this committee.